Joining us now, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior White House Correspondent at the Grio, April Ryan, and Professor of History and Public Affairs at Princeton University, Julian Zelizer. He is just out with a new book, In Defense of Partisanship. It's good to see both of you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. April, what is President Biden's intention here by leaving the office with these warnings?
His intention is to make America understand who he is, where he stands on the incoming administration. We have heard some of this before, the misinformation and disinformation, but it's put in a whole new setting behind the Resolute desk. You cannot be any more presidential than to sit behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office speaking to America. So that has a punch, more so to let people know this is official. This is a concern, not just for him as president, but it should be a concern for America and even the world. It was a time for the president to say goodbye as well. But one of the things, Anna, that I was really concerned about is the fact that he didn't give a final press conference. And we understand why. But this was his final word as to his thinking in this moment as history changes.
And as you and other journalists record what will be history down the road. Yeah. Julian, we've just learned that Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, even TikTok CEO are among those who will be attending President-elect Trump's inauguration, seated near cabinet officials, so given some prominent spots. What do you make of President Biden using this farewell speech to warn about an oligarchy in America?
Well, there's a tradition of this. Dwight Eisenhower, when he departed in 1961, warned of the military-industrial complex and the dangerous alliance between military contractors, the military, and government vis-a-vis Congress. And he said the institutions of democracy were at risk because of this alliance. And I think President Biden is trying to issue the same warning, not just talking about his record, but looking at major problems he sees in the structure of government and the impact of these alliances. So it's a powerful tradition. It won't have a short-term impact, but these become messages that endure.
You mentioned that sort of echo we heard from Biden from President Eisenhower's famous warning in his farewell address. And we actually have a clip of President Eisenhower's farewell. Let's play it.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex.
So you hear that similarity. We just touched on it, Julian, but I do wonder, do you see a through line, or are we talking apples to oranges here?
Well, it's about alliances that form between government and private actors, and the private actors are different in two different periods. But the through line is if there are no guardrails, if there's no way to contain what these alliances do, they undermine the ability of citizens to have an impact on our democratic decisions. And they gradually create great inequality, political inequalities, in who makes decisions and who has influence. And I think that's the through line, and it's just two different threats they're talking about, although obviously today technology and the military will converge.
April, President Obama had warned of political polarization ahead of Trump's first term in office. We've learned that he's going to be there, Clinton and Bush, they're going to be there at Trump's inauguration, but they won't go to the luncheon that day. What do you expect to see?
Well, first of all, I expect to see the same thing that we saw at Jimmy Carter's funeral, a lot of eyes rolling, or maybe just like, what's going on? I think we have to watch everyone and their body language and their eyes and their mannerisms. But at the end of the day, what we saw at Jimmy Carter's funeral is what's real. The presidents don't necessarily agree with incoming President Donald John Trump. Not just agree, they are polar opposites. Foreign policy, domestic policy, et cetera, and just on the issue of communication. Think about this. When Barack Obama became president, I'll never forget Newt Gingrich said that Barack Obama Democrats learned communication style with the internet. Republicans had to learn it. Look at what's happening now. you have presidents who are not really taking center stage versus communications people. Mark Zuckerberg, people like TikTok, the TikTok leader, as well as Jeff Bezos, going to be center stage with Donald Trump. It's about communication and the message versus the presidents. So I think that's where the focus is going to be. And I think the presidents know there's a shift and they don't like it. And that's one of the reasons why they will not be at that luncheon.